Hi everyone, this is a podcast on the How question for the GCSE English language reading paper. This is the November 2013 foundation paper. The question we're looking at is the How one. So of our question type, this one would be the analysis of persuasive techniques. This is the only question where you'll be expected to use point, evidence, explain. This is probably the trickiest question on the reading paper. So this question will either be question 2 or 3 in the exam. If we look at the thoughts and feelings question, they normally swap. So what I mean by that is if the thoughts and feeling question is number 2, the how will be number 3 and vice versa. 100% chance you're going to get a how question on the paper. Really simple way of telling it's the how question. It will 99% of the time start with the word how. So here we go, in this exam paper it's question 3. How does Frank Gardner show how wonderful his day was in this part of the text? Another thing you've just got to look out for is the bold writing. So the bold writing above each word, each question are instructions. The instruction for this question is read the second page of the article from 5 AM to the end of the article. That means if you answer any part of this using the first page, you'll get a big fat 0 for that part of your answer. So on every other question in the exam, you'd be looking to make 10 points or 10 or 11 points. For the PE question, the how question, we're looking for 5 or 6 points and quotes and 5 or 6 explanations. So you'll get a mark for your point and quote, and then you'll get a mark for your explanation of the point and quote and why you've picked that point. So looking at the question again, it's the second page of the article. How does Frank Gardner show how wonderful his day was in this part of the text? If you want to ask your teacher for this exam paper, it's November 2013. Remember, we're just looking at 5 AM, so we're looking from this part, the second page. So I will read the article. If you don't want to hear my voice reading it, pause the video and read it yourself. So, at 5 AM, a knock on the door woke me. There are 24 gorillas in the group we will be tracking, announced our guide, Augustine. The males are only called silverbacks at 12 years old. They feed on over 200 species of plants. They are vegetarian animals, but they will also eat red ants, which gives them protein. They spend their time resting and feeding, then the silverback leader decides where to make the nest for the night, usually on the ground. This group has 3 silverbacks. Perhaps today we'll be lucky. He told me that mountain gorillas have increased, but they still remain an endangered species with fewer than 800 left in the wild. We headed uphill through open farmland until the track gave out. It was time to leave the Land Rover and start trekking. A stretcher complete with padded cushions had been prepared and I lowered myself into it to everyone's amusement. 4 wiry porters began to carry me uphill like some pampered emperor. Soon Augustine made another of his announcements. From here on, the guide said softly, we must be very quiet, for the gorillas are very close. At that point I had to be lifted from the stretcher to my wheelchair. With difficulty I then had to be pushed, pulled and hauled through the thick undergrowth by the good-natured porters, and then the most exciting moment of the trip arrived. I hardly dared to breathe. In a clearing of bamboo I caught that unique musty smell, and then from 10 feet away came a long, low growl. A huge silverback was sitting facing me, slowly chewing a bamboo shoot as he watched my clumsy progress. I know everyone says it, but it really is an incredible privilege to stare into the eyes of a wild yet docile creature. Strangely, I felt no fear, even though I knew that if the silverback chose to charge at me, my lifeless legs would give no chance of escape. Instead, we watched spellbound as baby balls of black fur tumbled and frolicked, then stopped to eat the wild celery growing around them. Some were curious and came close to my wheelchair, while the silverback simply stretched out and yawned, as if on a sun lounger. It was an enchanted hour of perfect peace, a magical end to a wonderful day. Okay, so I got my classes of various students to look through this text and look through the how text, and the most important thing is I want you to try and annotate and highlight language to show how wonderful his day was. Remember, that's a question. Then I've done a little list of rhetorical question, power 3 and so on, to show how wonderful his day is. Maybe the writer used some of these techniques. One obvious technique this article uses that wasn't on the shark exam paper, if you've been studying that with your teacher, is this one's got a picture. So straight away, this picture here, this is Frank Gardner. So straight away we could say this is something that shows how wonderful the day was, because this is him, he's smiling, he's having a good time. Okay, so have a pause of the video and see if you can find maybe 6 or 7 things that you could talk about as showing how wonderful day he was having. So here's ones that I've got. Feel free to pause and write them down. So again, the question is, how does he show how wonderful his day was in this part of the text? So we could have the fact that he said it was 24 gorillas we will be tracking. So considering there's only 800 left in the wild, Frank Gardner's tracking 24. We could say it's probably a good chance of seeing at least one of them. It says to everyone's amusement. So why was it wonderful in this day? That's what everyone was having fun. There was a good mood in the camp. It wasn't just Frank Gardner and the people had to carry them. They were miserable. The mood was good for everyone. He says he was felt like he's some kind of pampered emperor. So this shows that he's enjoying being carried. He's made to feel special, and he's enjoying the fact that he's been made to feel special. Okay, like I've talked about, the photo suggests he's enjoying himself. He's not sitting there with tears in his eyes or with a big frown or a big sad face. He's enjoying himself. He seems to be smiling. He says, I hardly dare to breathe. So this shows how excited he was, that it's almost affecting him physically, and also the fact that he doesn't want to maybe hear the gorilla to hear him, so it shows how close he is. The fact he was 10 foot away, well, why is that wonderful? Well, it just shows how close he was. He literally was just within touching distance of these animals that people normally only see in documentaries. He said it was an incredible privilege to stare into the eyes. So this shows that he's honoured to be there. He knows he's in a privileged position, that a lot of people would be envious of him. He says he was spellbound. So spell is something maybe like a witch or a wizard would put on someone. They cast a spell. So it suggests it's almost a magical experience he's having. Okay, and a really obvious one at the end. He actually says, why is it a wonderful day? He then says, a magical end to a wonderful day. So he literally actually says the word wonderful. Also suggests that he would never forget it and it's always going to stay with him. Okay, so on this question, you can probably get 5, 6, 7 marks if you're just doing the point and evidence. But like I said at the start of the video, in this question you'll be looking at doing point, evidence, making inferences, reading between the lines, probing language to get top marks. So here's the mark scheme. Here's loads of other things you could have had. Pause if you want to look through it. We've talked about most of them. Okay, so remember I've just said you need to do point, evidence, explain. Keyword, if you looked at the shark video, keyword I want you to get into your heads is, for the explanation, this is where people tend to struggle. What do the words in the quote suggest? What people tend to do with the explanation is that they almost repeat their point. So for example, if it said in the quote, Frank Gardner says he has a wonderful day, people tend to do an explanation like this suggests he had a wonderful day. That's not going to get you the marks. You need to say, what do the words in the quote suggest? Why your quote proves that he had a wonderful day. So I'm going to show you a few examples. So point, evidence, explain. So my point is he shows how wonderful his day was when he says he felt like a... Remember, the point is pretty good. It's going to be repetitive. The whole question is, how has he had a wonderful day? So you're probably going to be repeating that a lot. But don't feel bad if you keep repeating it. So he shows how wonderful his day was when he says he felt like a pampered emperor. So what do the words in the quote suggest? So I'm going to say why the fact he felt like a pampered emperor made his day wonderful. So he put, this shows he enjoyed the experience of being carried around and being made to feel special. Next example. Another way he shows he's having a good time is with the picture of him. Okay, green and red most of the time. Point, evidence should normally be in the same sentence. You want to embed your evidence into your point. With this one, we could obviously not use speech marks because we're talking about a picture. So another way he shows he's having a good time is with the picture of him. It shows him smiling and looking as though he's enjoyed the day. So this is not rocket science. This is not really complicated stuff, but it's just simply saying why is a wonderful day, why you've picked the evidence. Another one. He shows how wonderful it is when he says that, excuse me, he hardly dared to breathe. So then I'm going to think to myself, well, why the fact he's hardly daring to breathe? Why is that making it such a wonderful experience? So I'm saying this suggests was so exciting, it was even affecting him physically. So he's actually getting a physical reaction to how wonderful the gorillas were. The last one of my ones. Again, he shows how wonderful it is when he says it was an incredible privilege. So again, I'm thinking, well, why is it an incredible privilege? Why does that show how wonderful it is? And it's an incredible privilege because it's showing that he was so thankful for the opportunity he was experienced that he knew he was in a position where other people would be dying to take his place. So like I said, you should be making 5 or 6 point evidence explains in your answer. So all I've done now is put these into a paragraph. So these are the ones I've showed you, and all I've done is put them into sentences properly, taking out the point evidence explain parts. So feel free if you want to pause that to see how an example of a few PEs. So here's the 3 I've just shown you. So we're looking for at least 2 more, but probably 3 more just to make sure we get the points. So I want you to pause the video now and see if you can come up with 3 of your own. So pause now. Okay, hopefully you've come up with your own ones, but we're going to go through the rest of other students that I think are pretty good. So number 4, another part that showed he had a wonderful day was when he says he was 10 feet away. Again, so I'm going to say why the fact he was 10 feet away proves he had a wonderful day. This shows how close he was and suggests how amazing the experience must have been. So we can probably put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's 10 foot away from these fantastic, pretty amazing experience to be in front of these animals. Another one, he shows how wonderful it is when he says it was an incredible privilege. This shows he was thankful for the opportunity he was experienced. I've already given you that one. Okay, another one, he goes on to say that when he was carried, it was to everyone's amusement. This suggests the mood of the day was good and everyone was happy. So if everyone's having a nice time, he's having a nice time, it sounds like it's a good mood. That's what made it wonderful. Perhaps it wouldn't have been so wonderful if he was happy and everyone was miserable and groaning. It wouldn't have made it a wonderful day. Last one of mine, he also says that it was a magical end to a wonderful day. So again, a magical end really does sort of exaggerate how good a day it was. So all I'm saying is why magical end to a wonderful day makes it sound wonderful. So this shows it was special to him and it was something he would never forget. If you describe this day as a magical end to a wonderful day, it's probably something that is pretty amazing to you. Okay, and all of this paragraph is those 7 PEs put into a paragraph with no spaces, like on this one. I've just put it into a paragraph with no spaces, and it looks pretty impressive like that. So feel free to pause. That would easily be a 10 out of 10 answer. You may find this pretty easy, this video, but remember you've only got about 15 minutes per question, so you've got to be pretty quick. So feel free to pause if you want to have a look at it. Okay, that's the end of the video on the how question for the gorilla paper. Hopefully it's made you a bit more confident, a bit like this guy going into the exam. Hopefully you'll be as confident popping out of the exam. Any questions on the how question, ask your teacher or leave a comment in the YouTube comment section. Thank you.